Go actually right into your phone calls because somebody called in just before the show started, and that means, well, we're just going to find out what this person wants to talk about. He's calling himself KC Masterpiece. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead. Calling from Wisconsin.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about mask mandates. I know this is kind of a boring old topic, but where I work in meat processing, and we're regulated by the USDA. And they have a rule that if in the county that the facility is in has a high enough transmission rate, then they mandate that all the employees have to wear masks.
Oh, God.
And they put that into place today, and we had to wear masks for months. So it's like really frustrating to have to wear masks again.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if there's like really any answers. I just want to like raise awareness that they're still doing this to people.
So you're saying this is a corporate mandate?
Well, no, this is a USDA mandate, so it's a government mandate.
Government, yeah, regulatory.
Yeah.
Wow. That's frustrating.
Yeah,
you know, most
really
of them,
is.
They're over it. They forgot about COVID. You know, it's an old thing, but now I'm stuck 12 hours a day with a mask on my face again.
And there's no exemption? There's no medical exemption option?
I'm going to look into it, but it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's terrible.
Yeah, that really is. I mean, COVID has pretty much turned into a nothing burger. You know, with the new Omicron variant that has extremely mild symptoms and delivers good protection. It's basically nature's vaccine. And for them to be masking people against this is absolutely absurd. There's so many more important things to be worried about than COVID these days.
Agreed.
Obviously, working in manufacturing can be fairly lucrative as far as the pay scale is concerned. Is that one of the reasons why you don't want to leave and go get work somewhere else? Because I hear a lot of places are hiring.
Yeah, you know, I consider that. You know, I'm really happy with my job. I like the people I work with. They treat me well. They pay me well. And, you know, it's not them doing this. It's, you know, it's the government who's making them do it. So, you know, like I'm not really mad at my employer. And, you know, a mask it's frustrating, but it's not the end of the world. It just, you know, it doesn't make any sense at this point. And I just, you know, I think most mandates that the federal government had have been, you know, overruled in one way or another, with planes and everything else. But I kind of know if anyone even knows that the USDA is still requiring this in places.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, the thing about the employer, you know, unlike humans, businesses actually do have some level of political power. And so one thing that militates in favor of quitting jobs that become uncomfortable because of the government is if they start losing good employees, businesses might actually stand up and go to bat for their employees when the government makes irrational demands of them, because they're going to start thinking, hey, we can't let this happen or we're going to lose good people to other industries.
I mean, you know, that might happen, but at the same time, it's probably just going to result in the business getting fined. So, I mean, I don't know if that's going to help, you know, in the scheme of it, in terms of actually fighting back against the government itself. Although I'm not saying they shouldn't do it. I'm just saying
what I'm talking about is it would encourage the business to defend the employees indirectly by when the government starts talking about doing these stupid things. The business then has an incentive to say, hey,
yeah, I mean,
wait a minute, don't do that. We can't lose any employees.
Unfortunately, it's one of these situations where I think, you know, there's harm one way or no matter what happens, there's going to be harm. You know, either your employees are going to get harmed or your business is going to get harmed. It's just something is going to happen, and I don't necessarily know that as much as I would like to think that might help fight back against this government, you know, and these regulators. I don't necessarily know if it actually would help.
Yeah, I mean, it may not. Biden seems intent on turning the American economy into a kamikaze mission.
Didn't he already do that? I mean, have you looked at inflation lately?
They're in the plane, they're in the air, but they haven't yet hit the ship, which is when things really get ugly.
KC, thanks for bringing that up tonight.
Yeah, pretty
man.
bad.
I do appreciate hearing from you. The number is 603-283-6160. Since you mentioned Joe Biden, I actually have a clip relating to the economy and what he had to say today after the after the new inflation numbers came out, which we'll share with you here in a moment.
Today's inflation report confirmed what Americans already know. Putin's price hike is hitting America hard.
Biden's price hike.
Well, it's not just Biden. I mean, they were printing out those trillions during Trump. So, it's the
and the person who should have been yelling about it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Did I hear him correctly? Did he say Putin's price hike?
Right. Yeah, let's play it again for you.
Inflation
Oh,
report.
yeah, that's their favorite lie these days.
Wow.
They blame everything on Putin and the war in the Ukraine, which, seems to be no more than an excuse to pay back the Ukrainians for the millions they gave his son.
That's hilarious, given that it's the United States leading the charge. It's literally the president leading the charge against Russia and the blockades. Basically all of the sanctions are the U.S. are being led by the United States. So any effect that has, like for example, on crops not being exported from Russia or oil not being exported from Russia. I mean, this is all because of.
That's right.
Hey, well, and the other thing is, if the worst thing that Biden could think of to do with Russia was cutting off their oil pipeline, who was he punishing when he cut off our oil pipeline? We could have a pipeline. That means more efficient delivery. That means lower prices.
Yeah.
But we're using less efficient means because these morons demand it.
Confirm what Americans already know. Putin's price hike is hitting America hard. Gas prices at the pump, energy and food prices account for half of the monthly price increases since May. Inflation outside of energy and food, what the economists call core inflation, moderated the last 2 months. Not enough, but it moderated. It's come down. And we need it to come down much more quickly.
Yeah, this distinction between core inflation and not core inflation is nonsense. The reality is inflation is everywhere and always, as Milton Friedman put it, a monetary phenomena. Okay, so if people are spending more on gas, then they're going to spend less on other things. But that doesn't mean inflation is coming down. It means it's shifting. No. Inflation is not the grade school creamy model that people imagine. Inflation is chunky. And those chunks are economic distortions that are created in the economy that serve no purpose except reacting to inflation.
According to CNBC's report, the Consumer Price Index, which is the number that most people are looking at here, one of the numbers, it's the main one, it rose 8.6% in May compared to from a year ago, which is the highest increase since December of 1981. So it is the highest it has been in 40 plus years.
I mean, and this is on cooked books,
right?
Because the inflation numbers are a lie from the beginning to the end. They always have been, because the whole model is intentionally cherry-picked to hide the reality of inflation, which is what it purports to show.
Right.
I mean, isn't this the number that we're talking about? Like they aim for 2 to 3. They say they aim for 2 to 3%. Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, that's a huge number relative to what they aim for, and I put that aim for in quotes.
4x. And what they aim for is for the value of your wages to be constantly dropping every year. That's the best case scenario for these idiots.
There's more coming up here in moments. You're welcome to share your thoughts on inflation. We got the latest, as you pointed out, manipulated numbers. More coming up here. It is Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what the readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. freedomsphoenix.com, constantly providing the information, the real news about government policies, and the real relationship we all have with the coercive government. The real condition of the economy, innovations in technology, breakthroughs in energy, health, and computer science. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media. The corporate media, nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but now there's an alternative. freedomsphoenix.com. Constant news updates on the issues that affect your life in the most important ways. With liberty and property under constant attack, freedomsphoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda, and it encourages the participation of its readers. Go to freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. freedomsphoenix.com. The revolution between the ears has already happened.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones are open, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. 6160. Free Talk Live brought to you by Bitcoin.com. You can go to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started at the top of the page, and learn about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. You do need to get some of the basic concepts down. I would recommend before you decide to get in with any kind of an investment into cryptocurrency. There's a little bit of a learning curve, but it's not as bad as you think it is. Just got to get some basic ideas down. Go to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started at the top of the page, and you can begin your odyssey into the world of cryptocurrency. If you're ready to get more news info about crypto, then go to their news site over at news.bitcoin.com, and you'll find that there every single day. That's news.bitcoin.com. As we continue here, we're going to go to your phone calls and thoughts. Gigi is on the line in South Carolina. Gigi, you're on Free Talk Live.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hey.
For all of your listeners out there who are passionate about civil liberties and constitutional rights, such as I am, and the entire hosts are, as I know all of you are. The Supreme Court had a verdict today, which I feel personally is exceedingly frightening. God bless those 6 conservative justices. A case came up from Washington State regarding the Fourth Amendment, specifically focusing upon excessive force pertaining to search and seizure with regard specifically to Border Patrol, saying that, in their opinion, national security and immigration fall under the heading, and therefore excessive force is kosher. God help us.
Use of excessive force in apprehending the Blues Brothers has been approved.
Yeah, we talked about this actually yesterday on the show. As you said, it was a 6-3 decision, and basically what they said was this owner of I think it was a bed and breakfast on the border of Washington State and Canada, who was attempting to sue the Border Patrol for roughing him up and what else?
Roughing up the property within his property.
Right, they searched his property without a warrant. And the court said, no, you can't sue. These agents are immune from lawsuit. We need to have, if you want to be able to sue the Border Patrol, then Congress would have to create a cause of action in order for you to be able to do that. So, nope, you can't sue them.
Gotta love an agency that openly says we have the right to rob, rape, murder, destroy your property, do whatever you want to you. Because we're the government. They think they own us, and nothing is going to convince them otherwise but actually fighting back.
Yeah,
so more and more your civil liberties and constitutionally guaranteed rights are being eroded. Be aware, everybody.
Thank you, Gigi, for the call tonight. Definitely appreciate hearing from you. The only solution here is, in my opinion, I don't think violence is going to be the answer, but I think that secession would certainly be a big step in the right direction. Now, that's not to say that the New Hampshire state government won't go as insane with their law enforcers, but at least, we know where Governor Sununu lives.
Yeah. Apparently they know where Brett Kavanaugh lives, too.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting violence or anything like that, but we've had many a protest out in front of Sununu's home. In fact, I think you saw some news today, Chris, that some of the protesters at an event Sununu was at where 9 people were arrested may have their charges dropped in the near future.
Yeah, it sounds like that might happen,
no, not yet.
But it hasn't happened yet, but there's no basis, according to them. Although, as I understand it, it's... what he actually said was charges, I guess there was another investigation, and charges won't be brought is more along the lines of what it is, not that the other charges won't be dropped. So those
okay, because the way the headlines are making it sound is like they're going to get rid of the existing charges, but that I have not yet seen that's
not
the case.
My understanding of it, and I've spoken with people directly involved, so
it's getting passed around though. As the headlines sound, if you just take the headline at its face value, it sounds like they're going to get rid of the charges off the so-called New Hampshire 9, but I've not yet seen them actually saying they were going to do that they weren't going to bring further charges for a different occurrence.
Yeah, because they were talking about. I actually forgot that they had been talking about and threatening more charges.
Well, they did bring more charges against the New Hampshire 9. So what you're confused about, nobody, is the people who won their cases in regards to the governor are the people who are protesting, quote-unquote, picketing outside of the governor's house. Every one of those picketing charges, the defendants have been found not guilty. So far, 8 of the 9 have gone to trial on that, and all 8 of them were found not guilty. So that's what you were thinking of.
Okay.
What we're talking about is the 9 people who were arrested because the pickets were just tickets. Like 8 out of 9 of them were just tickets, and only one guy got arrested. The guy that got arrested, by the way, also found not guilty of a few different charges they hit him with. That was our friend Skyler. And so that the people who we are talking about here are the New Hampshire 9. Those were the people that were at the council meeting that the governor was at and got arrested for, one lady said amen, after they did the Pledge of Allegiance, she got arrested, and then Frank was arrested for her, just, I guess, for being Frank, our friend Frank, a.k.a. Footloose.
And the interesting thing about that is they actually dragged him to the back before he had said anything.
Correct.
So what's the basis of pulling him aside to arrest him?
Who knows?
And then the basis of the arrest is him saying something.
Yeah, it's a really fishy case.
It's very, very bizarre. Like, it makes absolutely no sense.
And then they proceeded to arrest a 70-year-old woman and several other people who kind of stood up and spoke out as the cops were wrongfully arresting people.
And one person, it sounds like they didn't even grab the right person, and it's like, okay.
Oh, they just grabbed whoever they could.
Yeah, I mean, they grabbed a random person.
They were prepared to arrest a third of that room.
Well, terrorists don't really worry that much about who they're targeting. They just want to make sure that somebody is harmed so the rest of the herd will be afraid.
That's right. Yep, beat them in the line. The number here is 603-283-6160. If you want to join the program, you can do that. The whole Border Patrol situation was a really sad story because the guy who was targeted by the Border Patrol was actually a snitch. So it's hard to feel bad for him because he was actually ratting out his own customers.
Snitches get ditches, and that's what they deserve.
Yeah, but it's still not a good precedent that was set in the case because it did basically back up the Border Patrol shaking this guy down and essentially searching his property without a warrant and roughing him up. I mean, that's what happened.
I think a lot of times people don't understand that, yes, sometimes it's better that bad people, so to speak, get off because the alternative is bad precedent, which is even worse for everybody.
That's what they mean when they say hard cases make bad law.
Yeah.
The number is 603-283-6160. Coming up, speaking of numbers, we've got the details on the Consumer Price Index at 8.6%. Last month, there was all this celebration from within the federal government that the number went down from 8.5%. So it was 8.5.
So things were getting worse slower.
Yes, correct. It was 8.5 in March. It was then 8.3 in April, and that's what all the celebration was. Like, whoa, it's going down! And now it's back up to now 8.6 in the month of May. There's more coming up here at 603-283-6160. Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off, now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The British government says the death sentence handed down to 2 British nationals and a Moroccan in a breakaway region of eastern Ukraine is an egregious breach of the Geneva Convention. Foreign Secretary Liz Truss made those comments after a phone call with her Ukrainian counterpart Dmytro Kuleba. The Russians are defending the death sentences delivered in the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic. From FSN's London bureau, Giles Gibson with more.
We haven't had many details yet from the Foreign Office here in London or from the Ukrainian side. We simply had a tweet from Liz Truss, the British Foreign Secretary, saying that they discussed these efforts to secure the release of those 2 British nationals who've been sentenced.
And the United Nations said today those death sentences themselves constitute a war crime. In other news, inflation in the United States has hit another 40-year high. At 8.6%, President Biden said in a statement that it's not coming down as quickly and sharply as the country needs to see. From FSN's business desk in New York, Will Denzelo with more.
May's Consumer Price Index was worse than analysts feared. Prices for a basket of goods and services are up 8.6% compared to a year ago. That's more than the 8.3% some predicted. Energy prices are up 3.9% compared to the previous month and are now up nearly 35% versus a year ago. When accounting for inflation, real wages in the US have ticked down, sparking fresh concerns that rising prices will dampen consumer spending. May's CPI figure is slightly higher than April's number, fueling fresh speculation that the Federal Reserve will raise interest rates at a quicker clip in a bid to curb inflation. The Fed's slated to convene next week.
The US has dropped requirements for foreign visitors to have a negative COVID test before they fly into America. That move comes into force on Sunday, just as a spike in cases is being recorded at several tourist hotspots. From FSN's New York bureau, Sarah Walton with that story.
Miami-Dade County in Florida, Honolulu County in Hawaii, and the capital of Puerto Rico, San Juan, are now seeing an average of 85 new cases of COVID-19 a day each per 100,000 residents. They also have a positivity test rate of over 20%. That's much higher than the national rate of 13%, with 34 new cases recorded per day. What those three places have in common is that they're all major tourist destinations for sun seekers. Health experts are warning that with lots of people now opting for at-home testing, many positive results are also not being reported.
And the High Court in London has ruled that the UK government's controversial plans to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda next week, where they will await processing of their claims to live in Britain, can go ahead, although the judge left the door open for an appeal that will take place on Monday. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. Bring up what you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Also want to make sure you know about the upcoming event in July. It's Freedom Fest. Freedom Fest is back in Vegas after taking a year off from Vegas to go and hold the event last year. I think it was in South Dakota.
Because there's no freedom in Vegas.
Well, that's true, but there is Freedom Fest, and it is the world's largest gathering of free minds that they claim. Although I don't know, PorcFest, it's going to give that a run for its money on that claim. PorcFest, I believe, hit a record of 3,000 tickets sold this year. It is a sellout event at the Porcupine Freedom Festival, but you can still get tickets for Freedom Fest. July 13th through the 16th, there will be thousands of people at Freedom Fest in Vegas. It will be happening. Let's see. FreedomFest.com is where you can get the tickets. You can use code FTL50. That's FTL50 to get $50 off their regular rate. And it's happening at the Mirage in Vegas. There will be a variety of things to do there. It's a 4-day conference, big debates, world-class speakers, film festival, social events, the Trade Show for Liberty, and more. Speakers include John Cleese, Ben Stein, Steve Forbes, Senator Rand Paul, Glenn Beck, Spike Cohen, Justin Amash, and many more. You can go to freedomfest.com to learn more about the event. They're calling the event Turning the Tide this year, and they'll be discussing everything from Bitcoin to gold, economics, politics, the Constitution, philosophy, science, technology, vaccines, education, and more. You can go to freedomfest.com, use code FTL50, and save $50 as we go to your phone calls and thoughts. Tom is on the line in New Hampshire. You're on Free Talk Live, Tom.
I filed this morning in Concord.
Oh?
I'm running as a Republican for U.S. Congress in the 1st Congressional District. I live in the 2nd Congressional District, but you can do that for that one office, U.S. House. You don't have to live in the district. You only have to live in the state. Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that detail. So why did you choose to file in a district in which you were not living?
Because Matt Mowers is running as a Republican, and he's a Trump supporter, and people need somebody who's not a Trump supporter that they can vote for. And, you know, I mean, let's face it, you got the only thing Biden had going for him is that he's not Trump, and the only thing Trump had going for him is that he's not Biden. I mean, people vote for one because the other is even worse. I figure, how about let's get a candidate who actually wants the United States of America to become a free country with liberty and justice for all.
Well, you know that's never going to happen.
Well, see, it took a bloody war just to emancipate the slaves in some states, and the war wasn't started.
It didn't really need to happen that way, though. I mean, slavery was eliminated in the rest of the world without any conflict as far as wars are concerned. It's pretty much exclusive to the United States.
Now, but it took a war because so many crazy people kept voting wrong. Now, imagine what it's going to take to open the borders.
No, it took a war because Abraham Lincoln wanted to keep the states together in the Union. I mean, that's ultimately what the Civil War was about.
It was about secession, but then he turned, quote, "The moment came when I felt that slavery must die that the nation might live," unquote.
Yeah, he would have done anything at all to keep the Union together. If he could have kept slavery and kept the Union together, he would have done that too. I mean, the dude was a racist.
That's a direct quote.
Yeah.
Now,
Tom, you entered a race here. I'm looking here at the filings. I've been eyeballing them over the last few days. For listeners that don't know, what he's referring to is it's the filing period in New Hampshire has been going on for the last several, I guess 10 business days at this point. And you filed in a race where there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 candidates. So you've got quite a bit of competition out there.
Yeah, but I'm the one that doesn't support Trump. I don't know how many of them are ones that do support Trump, and they need somebody not only who isn't Trump and isn't a Trump supporter. I'm a Ron Paul supporter. I got my campaign websites tweaked up a little bit here, but you see, we need somebody who wants to open the borders, who wants to legalize all drugs, who wants to abolish public school and school taxes and abolish all the zoning restrictions. And Congress cannot do all of that by itself. But
well, I'm glad you didn't file in the District 2 race, because then you would have been filing against Lily Tang Williams, who is a great libertarian activist and Free State Project mover. And so we do actually have some pretty good options on the Republican side. And it sounds like they may, some of the libertarians, if they know you're out there, they might vote for you. Thank you for the call tonight.
And Lily Tang is getting some national attention.
Really? And has been.
Yeah, she was on Fox News.
And she was getting that attention before she ran for office, by the way, because she's been noteworthy for her escape from China. And so whenever they want to have somebody on to talk about how bad China is, she's the go-to girl for that.
And it certainly is bad.
It's worse now than it's been in quite a long time, too. I mean, it's just what the folks in Shanghai and, of course, the Uyghur Muslims have been going through is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, they is oppression and lockdowns. They put a whole new spin on it with COVID here, and they haven't let up.
Yeah,
so
25 million locked up for nothing in Shanghai. People jumping off buildings. The night is filled with the sound of people just screaming for not for no reason,
out of their apartments
because they've been locked up for no
Yeah.
reason.
They're supposedly, quote unquote, opening up parts of the city now in Shanghai after something like nearly 90 days of intense lockdowns, but it's not the entire city, it's different sections or whatever.
Zero COVID.
I heard they opened up and then they locked down right away again.
Some of them, some of the places. I mean, we don't know.
Or some parts of the city.
Yeah, all we know is
down.
what we hear from people that are.
This is true.
Are there.
It's true.
But yeah, so it is campaign season. New Hampshire, by the way, for listeners that don't know, every 2 years, the entire New Hampshire government is up for replacement, which doesn't happen in a lot of places. Usually those people are in there for 4 years in most states. But here, the governor, every New Hampshire Senate seat, every New Hampshire House of Representatives seat, and there's 400 of them, they all get the opportunity to get switched out. So it's like you barely have time to breathe before you're running for re-election if you did manage to get elected in New Hampshire.
And unlike anywhere else in the country, there are actually libertarians getting elected. They're getting elected as Democrats and Republicans, mostly Republicans.
But I hear there might be some silent Democrat candidates on the ballot this time around.
Oh, good.
I don't know how many. I don't know who they are. I don't recognize all the names, but it is fun to look at the filings and see, oh, I know that person. Oh, I know that person. Oh, I know that person. As you go down the list, there's so many people, and we only know a fraction of the number of free staters here in the state. So there's way more on this list than what we might be able to recognize. but there's a ton of them. And, the Republicans and the Democrats, they don't like it. Some of them don't like it that the Free Staters are running in their elections. But as I pointed out recently,
they shouldn't have rigged the game so that only Democrats and Republicans can compete.
Exactly. Yeah, there was an article that Damian Fisher over at New Hampshire Journal wrote about my filing for to get my ankle monitor removed, and he also mentions that I'm running for state senate here. And I pointed out, quote, "As you may know, New Hampshire's ballot access laws make it difficult to run as a third party. Running as a libertarian would cost many hours of gathering 700 valid signatures, and you probably got to shoot for 1,500 as they will try to disqualify them. Whereas running for New Hampshire Senate as a major party is only $10. If the parties ever make ballot access equal for smaller parties, then perhaps fewer libertarians will run under the majors' labels. I understand some of the parties are frustrated by the infiltration of libertarians, but they did it to themselves by keeping the third parties off the ballot."
Yeah. And the reality is the game is the rules of the game. So if they rig the rules, then right or wrong don't come into it. The rules of the game are the rules of the game.
Yep.
They made the rules of the game, and we need to beat them by any means necessary.
Absolutely. And I hope that it comes to the point where we see Free Staters on all sides of an election more often. It has happened on a rare occasion in the past where the Democrat, the Republican, and the Libertarian are all Free Staters running in various different races. We're going to get there. More coming up. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. The phones are open and you can join us here at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Whether you want to comment on the inflation or the so-called Putin's price hike, as Joe Biden is referring to it, which of course is ridiculous. But again, you're welcome to bring up anything you want here at 603-283-6160. Also, want to say thank you to Scott Hughes, who is a Free Talk Live supporter of our AMPS Patreon. You can join that over at amps.freetalklive.com. Scott's doing gold level, which means he's doing at least $10 a month. So thank you for that, Scott. And if you want to join him, you can help us spread the ideas of liberty, and you can help us advertise, market, promote, and support. That's what AMPS stands for. amps.freetalklive.com will get you to our Patreon page where you can sign up with your credit card, debit card, your PayPal. That's amps.freetalklive.com. Here tonight, you've got Ian.
Nobody.
And Chris.
We're going to continue here. The news is official as far as the numbers. The CPI at the inflation rate is measured by the government, which, as you pointed out, nobody is highly manipulated. So you can figure that this is the bare minimum. You can imagine that the inflation is much higher, probably in the double digits somewhere. We just don't know exactly where. But they say that the numbers have gone to 8.6%, which is the highest in recent memory. It's the highest in 40 years, as a matter of fact, according to the statistics. And the Consumer Price Index is a wide-ranging measure of goods and services increased over what the Dow Jones estimated. Dow Jones said it was going to be 8.3. It turned out to be 8.6. And the so-called core CPI, which is then excluding food and energy prices, was up 6%, which was higher than estimated as well. So even though Biden was trying to play that number down, it's still up compared to what they were expecting.
And the thing that people don't realize, inflation is a purely artificial concept. In a free market economy, the monetary medium is always going to be a commodity. Okay? And the thing about a commodity is when you use a commodity as currency, it's impossible to have inflation, because inflation is a general rise of prices. And
it's a rise in supply of money as far as the government is concerned.
It's caused by an increase in the money supply.
That is what, as I understand it, inflation is, and then you see price increases as a symptom of inflation.
Yeah, that's something. That's how they put it in the Austrian school specifically. It's not necessarily generally accepted.
I know, that's a problem.
That's the definition.
Right. The government economics classes and everybody in the mainstream media always says that inflation is an increase in prices, but that's just what happens when inflation occurs, which is an increase in the money supply, because then you have a larger amount of money chasing the same amount, or in some cases fewer goods. So of course prices go up.
Yeah,
right?
and it's impossible for there to be a general rise in prices when your money is a commodity. And Adam Smith actually illustrated this very well with an anecdote about Spain. During the 15 and 1600s, a lot of gold was imported into Spain from the New World.
Okay.
And remember, The Wealth of Nations was written in 1776. So, and basically in Spain, it was against the law to export gold and silver. They thought the well-being of the nation was based on the amount of gold and silver that was there. So basically, the gold and silver were piling up in Spain, and Adam Smith said, imagine if we treated other metals that way, much to the supplement of the pots and pans of the nation. But basically, so because the monetary instrument was also a commodity, people just started consuming it. They started making plates and bowls out of gold because why not? And that's the distinction when your money is a commodity.
It's useful for other
you
things.
can consume the commodity. And so effectively the price of that commodity falls
as
when
it's being consumed.
Well, it rises as it falls when the amount of it is increased, like the importation of gold and silver into Spain. But then by consuming that commodity, you can then cause the value to rise again, or the price of it to rise again. So you cannot have inflation without an artificial money supply.
And that is created, of course, by the central banks of the world at this time. And that is something that definitely needs to end. But of course, we're never going to see the end of the Federal Reserve until the entire federal government, I think, comes crashing down. And then some people would say that's coming soon. Hopefully it is.
Well, as Jim Morrison said, I don't know what's going to happen, man, but I know this. I'm going to get my kicks before the whole S-House goes up in flames.
Speaking of going up in flames, of course, fuel prices are at record highs. New Hampshire's fuel price average just crossed $5. The pump out down the street here is at $4.99 right now for regular.
If New Hampshire's at $5, what's California doing?
It's much higher.
Twice that, I think.
I think
really?
They didn't quite. Well, it depends on where you go. Matt, our co-host on Thursday nights, was out there recently and traveling in the up and down the coast. He said he was seeing 6.5, 7, somewhere in that range. But then again, that was a week or two ago at this point. So, and some gas stations are closer to 8, 9, 10, depending on what area of California.
Right.
So, but according to the story here, it
was absolutely shameful to see people like the congressman from Michigan saying, "Well, I don't worry about gas prices because I drive a Tesla," and it's like, yeah, that's because you got rich robbing us.
Yep.
The rest of us can't drive Teslas.
You know what's also interesting is I think that might possibly be after. I think they were talking about eliminating or reducing the tax on gas in California, which is if they did that, then that
would come down quite a bit.
Then it's
isn't it 65 cents a gallon or something like that?
Something like that. But I'm just wondering if they've already done that, or if it's now it's something they're just talking about doing. Yeah, well, but I'm just thinking if they have done that already, then
they're talking about doing that in California.
I think it was, if I recall correctly. Yeah, because the prices were so high.
I bet if they do it, it'll only be like a 1 week break or something like that.
Probably temporary, but nonetheless, it's just if they. That's why I'm just curious.
The
if
nice
they've already
thing
done
about that is it would expose very graphically the amount of damage done by the government if those gas taxes went away and then came back. The government makes in some places over $1 off every gallon of gas that you buy. The gas companies make 7 cents a gallon on average. That's the actual profit.
It's insane.
Wow. So let me get this straight. You're saying the government makes more money
than the
gas than the gas companies.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that seems fair because they did absolutely nothing but obstruct the process of producing it.
This, on the one hand, this doesn't surprise me, but on the other hand, I wasn't aware of the tax, like the amount of tax on gas being so high that it far exceeds the gas station's profits.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I was shocked when I found out how low the profits were, and that's the thing is Marxists assume that like 90% of the price you pay goes to profit, and that's almost never the case.
Yeah, maybe they did cut it, Chris, because I'm on GasBuddy.com right now looking at California, and I'm seeing prices that are lower than I expected. $5.55 in Rancho Cordova, $5.70 in Los Angeles, so below $6 in some places in California.
I bet you they did cut
must
it.
have.
Wow. Nobody. I have a little bit of an idea on like what the profit margins are on some of this stuff. So it actually varies a lot depending on the business. Some items there's like no profit in it. Like my company is a good example. So like we sell computers, but we don't really make any money on computers. But the accessories, there could be anywhere between like a 50% markup all the way up to like 900% or something ridiculous. But it depends on what it is. But usually that 900% is like on something that's really, really inexpensive because you got to make your money somewhere ultimately. So you're not necessarily making that much money on it, but it perceptionally, a percentage wise, it does sound like a lot.
We got more coming up. If you want to weigh in on the inflation and how it's hitting home, you're welcome to share your thoughts in hour 2 coming up.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The British government says the death sentence handed down to 2 British nationals and a Moroccan in a breakaway region of eastern Ukraine is an egregious breach of the Geneva Convention. Foreign Secretary Liz Truss made those comments after a phone call with her Ukrainian counterpart Dmytro Kuleba. The Russians are defending the death sentences delivered in the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic. From FSN's London bureau, Giles Gibson with more.
We haven't had many details yet from the Foreign Office here in London or from the Ukrainian side. We simply had a tweet from Liz Truss, the British Foreign Secretary saying that they discussed these efforts to secure the release of those 2 British nationals who've been sentenced.
And the United Nations said today those death sentences themselves constitute a war crime. In other news, inflation in the United States has hit another 40-year high. At 8.6%, President Biden said in a statement that it's not coming down as quickly and sharply as the country needs to see. From FSN's business desk in New York, Will Denzelo with more.
May's consumer price index was worse than analysts feared. Prices for a basket of goods and services are up 8.6% compared to a year ago. That's more than the 8.3% some predicted. Energy prices are up 3.9% compared to the previous month and are now up nearly 35% versus a year ago. When accounting for inflation, real wages in the US have ticked down, sparking fresh concerns that rising prices will dampen consumer spending. May's CPI figure is slightly higher than April's number, fueling fresh speculation that the Federal Reserve will raise interest rates at a quicker clip in a bid to curb inflation. The Fed slated to convene next week.
The US has dropped requirements for foreign visitors to have a negative COVID test before they fly into America. That move comes into force on Sunday, just as a spike in cases is being recorded at several tourist hotspots. From FSN's New York bureau, Sarah Walton with that story.
Miami-Dade County in Florida, Honolulu County in Hawaii, and the capital of Puerto Rico, San Juan, are now seeing an average of 85 new cases of COVID-19 a day each per 100,000 residents. They also have a positivity test rate of over 20%. That's much higher than the national rate of 13%, with 34 new cases recorded per day. What those 3 places have in common is that they're all major tourist destinations for sun seekers. Health experts are warning that with lots of people now opting for at-home testing, many positive results are also not being reported.
And the High Court in London has ruled that the UK government's controversial plans to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda next week, where they will await processing of their claims to live in Britain, can go ahead, although the judge left the door open for an appeal that will take place on Monday. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, and we're going to keep Ukraine in the spotlight today because we are at the end of a week that has seen Russia again intensify its bombing campaign in eastern Ukraine, and it's raised questions about whether the Donbas region can survive the war as part of Ukrainian territory. A low-level war has been raging there for years between Ukrainian forces and pro-Russian separatists, now recognized by the Kremlin as independent. But for all the heroism and bravery of Ukraine's resistance on a national scale, it now seems increasingly possible that Russia will annex the east of the country. Ed Arnold is Research Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute, and he's been looking at the situation on the battlefield.
At the moment, the Ukrainians, for the first time really in this war, have gone public with their casualty figures with a range of around 100 to 150 killed in action and 500 to 800 wounded in action per day. And that is really unsustainable. And while Ukraine have managed to almost double their ability to generate either professional or reserve soldiers, they're inexperienced. So at the start of this war, they put their most experienced troops on the east here, and they are in real risk of being surrounded.
Western military officials still believe the Russian army is running into broad difficulties in Ukraine, but there's no question their position in the Donbas is strengthening. The main news again, the UN says death sentences handed down to 2 British citizens and a Moroccan in eastern Ukraine are themselves a war crime. Inflation in the US hit 8.6% in May, another 40-year high. It sparked a sharp sell-off on Wall Street. And the High Court in London has ruled the UK government can go ahead next week with plans to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda, where they will await processing of their claims to enter Britain. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
This is the Onion Week in Review. According to friends, colleagues, and complete strangers, anxiety-ridden man Timothy Gibula is rightly ashamed of every single thing he does, with mere acquaintances saying they're constantly judging Gibula at every moment, just as he suspects.
Tim's the kind of guy who's forever second-guessing his behavior, as if everyone's constantly scrutinizing him, and he's completely correct. We all are.
We can spend entire afternoons picking apart Tim's taste in clothing and his receding hairline. It's honestly all we do when he's not around.
Anytime he awkwardly says excuse me when he's waiting in line for milk or sugar, anytime he fails to make eye contact with me when he asks me for the Wi-Fi password, not only do I notice these things, but I use them to judge him fundamentally as a human being.
A 3-alarm fire that tore through a family home in Newark, Delaware early Saturday morning tragically claimed a half sleeve of Oreo cookies that were trapped inside a cupboard. At the time of the blaze, the residence was occupied by Mike and Sheila Donlan, their 3 young children, and 6 delicious chocolate sandwich cookies, all half dozen of which perished in the intense heat and towering flames.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and the phones are open if you want to join us here. We're kicking off the second hour of the show. We're talking about the latest inflation numbers, now at a record high in the last 40 years. If you want to weigh in, you're welcome to join us at 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian.
Nobody.
And Chris.
And you can join us online anytime you want. Just head over to freetalklive.com and enjoy the features we have there, including our social media platform, which we run. It's on our server. It's a Mastodon-based system. That means it's open source, self-hosted, and federated, so it's connected with other Mastodons all around the planet. That means if you're already on Mastodon, you can follow any of the accounts on our system, and vice versa. It's a pretty cool setup. You can go and interact with other Free Talk Live listeners and some of the hosts over at social.freetalklive.com. That's social.freetalklive.com. Let's go back to the phones to your calls and thoughts. Olivia is in Arizona. You're on Free Talk Live. Olivia.
Hey, so I wanted to address that caller real quick before I get to inflation, the one who was acting like Abraham Lincoln was some kind of loving hero to the African Americans. Like you and nobody said, he literally said in a letter to Horace Greeley, if I could save the Union without freeing any slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing some and leaving others alone, I would do that. And he also, when a Union officer asked for help to feed and assist freed slaves, Abraham Lincoln told them that they were freed men now, let them root, hog, or die. So they were on their own.
He was also actively working to deport a lot of them to Liberia.
Everybody always forgets that Lincoln did not free the slaves the way that it is.
He didn't free a single slave.
It is told. What he did was he for military reasons, he said all the Southern slaves, or not even Southern, but the Confederacy. Slaves of the Confederacy were freed, but the Northern slaves, which did exist, they were not freed because they were not part of the Confederacy. So the war wasn't, to say that the war...
by definition, a proclamation that was effective only where it was ineffective.
Right. Like this whole idea that, the slavery, like the whole war was over slavery, I think is a little bit misleading. I'm not saying
propaganda.
I'm not saying that like it wasn't an aspect,
it was over
but
slavery. I mean, if you read the documents that the Southern states put in when they seceded, every single one of them says this is because of slavery. So that dog won't hunt, and I think people err when they push too hard on it. The bottom line is,
but that's not the reason for the war.
Well, no, the reason for the
secession,
war
one of them,
is that the northern states wanted control over the southern states. So basically,
Abraham Lincoln
wanted to enslave the slavers.
Yeah. Well, specifically, Abraham Lincoln wanted control, right? And the war was not only just about slavery, because that was one reason, but also taxation, and there were some other issues, if I
and the taxation was what the North wanted to preserve.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like, it's interesting about this because it doesn't seem like either the right or the left, I guess, really has an accurate depiction of what happened.
They both cherry pick the parts of reality
they love
that
Lincoln.
Suits them.
Yeah.
Olivia, what else?
Well, just on that subject, 95% of Southerners didn't own slaves. They were far too poor. They had kids. And 10 years before the South seceded, there was something called the Palmetto movement in South Carolina where women would sew palmetto buds to their clothes. It was in protest with the taxes because the North was putting these huge, like 40% tariffs on farmers who don't make that much anyways, and they were keeping all the money in the North. They weren't sending it south, so that was part of it. But as far as inflation goes, I posted this picture to Mastodon. Around my town, somebody's been putting these Biden stickers on the gasoline pumps. Have you seen those?
The I did that sticker?
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
So that's been enjoyable. Actually, today, so I wanted to share this. I work at Ross Dress for Less, and I work as the morning stock. So we take the stuff that's off the truck and we put it out.
Yep.
So it's dependent on how much we get to work, how many hours we get to work is dependent on how big the trucks are, and they've been pretty small. And the managers are actually worried that people are going to start calling out because it's just not worth it to waste the gasoline to drive there for a couple of hours.
Right.
Just for like a couple of hours, these little trucks. But we're not getting stuff because nobody's buying it. The store is jam-packed with things, and we just don't have very many people buying right now.
Wow.
Interesting.
Well, I guess if fewer people show up, that means the people that do show up are going to have to take longer to unload the truck, so they'll get, the extra
that will
hours.
rebalance.
Yeah, the problem will solve itself.
Olivia, thanks for calling and sharing the story tonight. I appreciate it. The number here is 603-283-6160. There was a story last night, I guess, that Joa brought in that the police in some part of Michigan, I don't remember if it was Detroit area or whatever, but they've already gotten to 97% of their gas budget with 3 more months left in the fiscal year. So even the gas prices are hitting the government agencies too.
Well, they'll just steal more from you,
They
so
will, yeah.
it will only hit them for a moment.
Yeah, that's true. They'll raise property taxes or sales tax or whatever.
They've got a budget, though. I mean, at least temporarily, I would think that that would cause a problem. But
that's what he said. Only for the moment.
Okay.
It will inconvenience them
okay.
for a short time. And I said what they'll do is they'll just go start stealing cars from people or stealing.
They
property.
do that too.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing.
Yeah, they do.
Did you hear about the story where like they stole? They said if you buy us, they literally told they seized somebody's building.
Yeah.
And then they said we will like unseize it if you give us or buy us 2 cop cars or
Yep.
something.
I saw that one.
Like what on earth? Like seriously?
That's called extortion, boys and girls.
Yep.
Can
Yeah.
you say extortion?
That's
Sure.
gangland
I
stuff.
knew you could.
It's not even like it's not even like a facade of like taxation.
Facade.
It's facade. Yeah. Facade of taxation. It's just like outright.
It's right in your face.
Right in your face.
The mask is off. You are property until you decide you're not.
Well, I remember from years ago, there was a story in southwest Florida, where I'm from, in Manatee County, that this claim was, and I heard this from reliable sources, that the cops were stopping people in a vehicle. They would find some drugs because it's not that hard. They could plant it if they wanted
quotes,
to.
right?
But you're going to find drugs. You stop enough people, right? And then they would take the vehicle from the person and or proceed to arrest them, and then tell them if they would just sign this form.
Oh yeah.
If you it looks like you got enough for a felony possession here, son. How about this? We'll go ahead and drop the felony charge, and we'll let you walk home. All you got to do is just sign over ownership of your car.
It's not your ass they want, it's your assets.
Yeah. And guess how many people? I mean, how many people would take that deal? A lot of them, right? 'Cause you just have them drop a felony charge. You otherwise would be going to Florida prison for 3 to 7 years or something.
Otherwise, you become part of the genocide, and that's what the war on drugs was.
And the crazy thing is, the lawyers are going to probably cost more than the car.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So that's how they were doing it, and then they can do the same thing now. The number is 603-283-6160. Sarah is on the line in New Mexico. Go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, yeah. So we there's a crosswalk between these 2 arroyos where the walk paths are, and so we're going to get a raised crosswalk. They're kind of like a speed bump, but it's smoother. So it's not like a full-on speed bump, but it's a hump.
Ooh, that's better than Liberty.
But I mean, But
Sarah does not care about freedom, that's for sure. She'll tax anybody, anywhere to make her roads the way she wants them to be.
But she won't do a lick of work to own some money that can be taxed.
No, that's true. That's true.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is that, but this hump, it's not extortion. Nobody's getting money out of them. It's just that
somebody's paying for it.
Yeah, but everybody has to pay
Everything
for
the government
you guys.
says is a lie, and everything they have is stolen.
Well, you guys benefit from it. You guys got free
I don't benefit
education.
from
You
it.
on the rate.
I'll tell you what I would benefit from is being free. That's what I would benefit from.
No doubt. Thank
That's
you for
a
the
nice
call,
stream
Sarah.
you got there, nobody.
I love it. There's more coming up. You can share your thoughts with us at 603-283-6160. And you can bring up whatever's on your mind here on Free Talk Live. More coming up. Join us.
Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
You know how annoying it is when someone keeps stopping mid-sentence as though he or she were asking you a series of questions? Avoid doing that. It sounds unnervingly tentative, and it imposes upon the listener to help you complete the thought. And if you're a job seeker, this alone could be a deal killer. An effective communicator sounds more confident. Complete the thought. Avoid making the listener impatient. With money and attention so scarce now, effective communication skills have never been more important. Cutting through the clutter rather than blending into the blah, blah, blah will help you connect better no matter what the conversation. For more tips, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook. Survivalspeech.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Oh yeah, it's Free Talk Live. Phones are open and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And you can join us online at freetalklive.com. Lots of features are free there. Unlike a lot of radio show websites where they want to charge you, you can just go and enjoy archives and more all over at freetalklive.com. Plus, Freedom's Phoenix, your source for all news, economic, government overreach, insane government spending, and more. You can get today's headlines in one place and from a fresh libertarian perspective at freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. It's Ian, Nobody, and Chris here on the show tonight. We were talking about the official government numbers for what's called the CPI, the price index, not the core, but...
Or as I like to call it, the CPI.
Consumer, that's it, Consumer Price Index. Up at a record in the last 40 years. The last time it was this high was December of 1981. And, the government gang would love for you to believe that it's going to turn around. It's going to start going down again. And maybe it will, but still, you can't trust a single thing that comes out of these people's mouths. As you pointed out, Nobody, the government is constantly lying. The state actors, if you will, they're constantly lying to you. They cannot be trusted.
They're trained. I mean, these bureaucrats and politicians are literally trained liars, especially in the case of law enforcement.
But the good news is, for the trillions that inflation costs people, the government makes billions, so it can waste those billions sending them to the military, and Hunter Biden can get millions.
40 billion, or was it 40? Was it billion? 40 billion going to Ukraine?
That was just one little chunk.
Yeah. Oh, they'll get more. Yeah.
40 billion here and 40 billion there. Pretty soon you're talking about real money.
Speaking of real money, the annual gain on energy prices. So in 1 year, it's gone up 34.6%, according to the numbers.
But your Tesla doesn't use energy.
Fuel oil posted a 16.9% monthly gain, pushing the 12-month surge to over 100%. So 106.7% on the price. That's the last 12 months. Increase in the price of fuel oil. Shelter costs, which also account for about a third of the weighting in the CPI, rose 0.6 for the last month, which is the fastest one-month gain since March of 2004. And that is a 5.5% 12-month gain, which is the most since February of 1991. And I don't know where they're getting a 5.5% from, because people are seeing... We saw another story, 5-6 weeks ago, about how rent for people is going up 30 or 40% when somebody's lease comes up. If your lease has come up in the last year or so, a lot of people are seeing their landlord coming back and saying, I'm sorry, but I've got to increase your rent 35%.
Well, the landlords have been bearing the cost of a lot of people who just refused to pay during COVID.
And the government backed those people up.
They couldn't evict them.
That's right.
Well, so you have to pay so parasites can live.
And I think that's I don't know where those numbers are coming from, but in some places it's way higher than that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
just cherry picking. There's some areas where it's lower, some areas where it's higher.
Yeah, some of the numbers I've heard of, people going from like more than doubling in terms of their rent.
Wow.
Yeah.
Time to move. But anyway,
where?
That's true. They're all probably
I would
up.
love to pay less in rent, but I'm paying $7.50 for the cheapest place I could find and getting eaten alive by bugs.
Well, that's a good point, because you could move out into the woods and pay less, but then you're just going to pay more in gas when you have to go somewhere.
That's actually unbelievable that you're paying $7.50 in rent.
In Keene?
In Keene.
Unbelievably low, you mean?
Yeah. How did you find such a deal?
Well, I live in one room.
That's still good for one room.
And as I say, I'm getting eaten alive by bugs.
That doesn't sound like much fun.
Well, that might not be fun, but for $7.50, I mean, like $7.50, like a couple years ago, okay, but now that's still amazing.
By the way, food prices, of course, continue to climb, over 1.2% up in the last month, bringing the year-over-year gain to over 10%, now in the double digits in the last year. And of course,
but you don't need to eat. Hunter Biden needs more crack.
And of course, the escalating prices mean workers take another pay cut during the month. Real wages, when accounting for inflation, fell 0.6% in April, even though average hourly earnings rose 0.3%. On a 12-month basis, real average hourly earnings are down 3%.
Back up. Yeah. They're taking a pay cut, or they mean figuratively?
Figuratively.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wait a minute. Where is that coming from?
Meaning that workers are not getting a raise fast enough to keep up with
inflation. I got you. Yeah, that makes sense.
And that always happens.
Well, and this is why I justify to myself giving my employees, a bigger paycheck, because it's like, how do you live on what you were making yesterday if the prices of everything are going up? But on the same token, how do I pay more? And I pay more by increasing the prices for everything else.
Yep.
So it's like, does it really do anybody any good?
Yes, it does the bankers good, because they get the money for free and get to charge everybody else for the use of it.
Oh, no, the bankers are complaining now because the Fed has raised its interest rates.
Yeah.
But it's close to free still.
They're living at your expense.
Yeah.
I mean, don't the banks get like the money for free or something, and they make the money off of the money that they led the loan out? So is it really actually affecting them, or is that just kind of like, they're making stuff up to act as if they're hurting when they're not really?
Because of the way fractional reserve works, they create the money out of thin air just by making a bookkeeping entry, but they have to keep a percentage of what they've created on deposit at the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, like a really tiny amount.
Yeah, it was when I was taking economics, it was 10%. But I know they cut it during the mortgage crisis, and I don't know if they've raised it again.
Airfares up 12.6% on the month.
Wow.
Used vehicle prices up 16% in the last year. And, it's just going to keep getting worse. And people think when the government gang, Biden gets on a podium and talks about how, we're going to bring these numbers down. We're doing everything we can to bring these numbers down, which, of course, is just a load of crap.
But he's not sending billions to the Ukraine.
But even if they do bring the numbers down, if they bring the CPI from 8 to 7%, well, it's still going up. It's still going up every single month, and those prices are not coming down anytime soon.
I mean, how are they going to bring it down? Put on do what they did with Venezuela, where they set caps on prices, and then everybody goes out of business?
No, they're talking about bringing in the inflation numbers down.
That's what Nixon did.
Yeah, but how are they
printing less money? Basically, would be.
Are you sure that's what they're talking about? Because Venezuela just put a cap on how much you could charge for stuff, and then the business.
Well, that's a different set of government solutions, which of course does what you're talking about. It destroys the economy in a completely different way. But they could.
The good news is the price of oil is down to $2 a gallon. The bad news is there isn't any.
Right?
Yeah, that's price controls for you. So if you want to weigh in here, you can join us. There's some good news, though. I want to get into a little bit of cryptocurrency good news. Plus, Chris, you've got some international news about Hong Kong. There might be another crackdown coming. We'll talk about that on the way. Of course, you can bring up whatever's on your mind here at 603-283-6160 and join us on Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
But we have the opportunity. No one has the opportunity.
Look, just hold on. Just because the slaves can pick the head slave doesn't mean that the slaves are free.
Oh, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Look, if people actually got up and voted for things, there might actually be some change.
People do actually get up and vote for things, and change always results in the same crap.
What are you going to do that's different by voting?
Two choices between crap sandwiches, man.
You're speaking out of both sides of your mouth. On the one hand, you're saying, oh, hardly anybody votes, so you can barely say this is a person of right. And then I say, well, gosh, if people get up and vote, maybe things will change.
Hold on, that was only one thing he brought up.
Here's what I mean.
That when people do vote, it doesn't make any difference because of a number of reasons.
People never vote in numbers that could actually reflect what
Why should I vote for any of these thugs? They're killers. They're murderers.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern. Live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The British government says the death sentence handed down to 2 British nationals and a Moroccan in a breakaway region of eastern Ukraine is an egregious breach of the Geneva Convention. Foreign Secretary Liz Truss made those comments after a phone call with her Ukrainian counterpart Dmytro Kuleba. The Russians are defending the death sentences delivered in the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic. From FSN's London bureau, Giles Gibson with more.
We haven't had many details yet from the Foreign Office here in London or from the Ukrainian side. We simply had a tweet from Liz Truss, the British Foreign Secretary, saying that they discussed these efforts to secure the release of those 2 British nationals who've been sentenced.
And the United Nations said today those death sentences themselves constitute a war crime. In other news, inflation in the United States has hit another 40-year high. At 8.6%, President Biden said in a statement that it's not coming down as quickly and sharply as the country needs to see. From FSN's business desk in New York, Will Denzelo with more.
May's consumer price index was worse than analysts feared. Prices for a basket of goods and services are up 8.6% compared to a year ago. That's more than the 8.3% some predicted. Energy prices are up 3.9% compared to the previous month and are now up nearly 35% versus a year ago. When accounting for inflation, real wages in the US have ticked down, sparking fresh concerns that rising prices will dampen consumer spending. May's CPI figure is slightly higher than April's number, fueling fresh speculation that the Federal Reserve will raise interest rates at a quicker clip in a bid to curb inflation. The Fed slated to convene next week.
The US has dropped requirements for foreign visitors to have a negative COVID test before they fly into America. That move comes into force on Sunday, just as a spike in cases is being recorded at several tourist hotspots. From FSN's New York bureau, Sarah Walton with that story.
Miami-Dade County in Florida, Honolulu County in Hawaii, and the capital of Puerto Rico, San Juan, are now seeing an average of 85 new cases of COVID-19 a day each per 100,000 residents. They also have a positivity test rate of over 20%. That's much higher than the national rate of 13%, with 34 new cases recorded per day. What those 3 places have in common is that they're all major tourist destinations for sun seekers. Health experts are warning that with lots of people now opting for at-home testing, many positive results are also not being reported.
And the High Court in London has ruled that the UK government's controversial plans to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda next week, where they will await processing of their claims to live in Britain, can go ahead, although the judge left the door open for an appeal that will take place on Monday. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, phones open if you want to join us here at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight you've got Ian,
Nobody, and Chris.
Free Talk Live brought to you by Truth Smacks. It is some delicious trail mix. And Nobody, you've been mowing down tonight on some of the Truth Smacks.
Oh, yeah.
You like it?
Well, I like it, and I'm a starving activist.
Well, it is it's excellent trail mix. I like good trail mix, and this is some of the best out there. It, in fact, is made with no artificial crap. They are using raw, unadulterated ingredients, only food as nature intended. It's Suzanne. She's a former...
Well, it's only raw until they cook it.
that's true. I don't know if it's being cooked, though. Suzanne, a former English teacher and a longtime truth seeker, recently started her own trail mix brand. She's making it, bagging it, and sealing it herself in a commercial kitchen down in Naples, Florida. She calls it Truth Smacks because there's a heavy dose of truth on the back of every bag. So these things are outreach material, basically. You put this in somebody's hand, and they're inevitably going to absorb some of the ideas that are on this bag.
It's got some of my favorite quotes on it.
Yeah, I asked you to pick a favorite here, and you told me this one. It's on the back here. I'm looking at the peppermint version. There's two different flavors. There's peppermint, and then there's the original. I think the same quotes are on both, but this is attributed to Benjamin Franklin. Quote, "Democracy is two wolves and a lamb voting on dinner. Liberty is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote."
And the way I understand the story is that the original quote was from Benjamin Franklin, that democracy is two wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for supper, and Thomas Jefferson rejoined with liberty is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote.
So you get a bunch of really great quotes like that on the back of every bag of Truth Smacks. Go to truthsmacks.com/shop. You can order yours there. That's truthsmacks.com/shop. They are spreading truth one delicious morsel at a time. And I hope I get to meet Suzanne. She's going to be at the Porcupine Freedom Festival coming up here in a couple of weeks. So if you haven't had a chance to try these yet, you will have no more excuses because she's going to be there in person. And I'm sure she'll be bringing up a whole bunch of Truth Smacks. truthsmacks.com/shop. Get yours there. 2 different sizes, 2 different flavors, and they're really great stuff. If you think you'll like the peppermint, you probably will. If you think you aren't into peppermint, don't bother with it. The original's fantastic, and you won't be disappointed with that. So
yeah,
check it out.
I think the peppermint's gilding the lily, but some people like it better.
The number 603-283-6160. So let's get into a little bit of good news here. We were talking about the inflation numbers and all that, and
there's good news in inflation.
No, not in regards to inflation.
Oh.
There's good news.
Well, there is if you're a bank.
Good point.
Well, and there might be if you are into cryptocurrency as well, because a lot of us, we don't know what the future holds, but a lot of us believe that cryptocurrency is going to be a good hedge against inflation, sort of how gold and silver have been over the years. Precious metals historically have been a good hedge against government-created inflation, and there's a good chance that crypto is going to behave in the same way, but again, we can't predict the future. That said, there's a story here from Protocol.com about a surprising team up, a surprising agreement between an old money company and a new one. So I didn't see this one coming, but MoneyGram is teaming up with Stellar. Now, what do you know about Stellar?
Well, Stellar uses a variant of the Byzantine General's solution to accomplish trustability, which basically the Byzantine General's problem is a problem in AI that's based on a ruler having generals leading different armies that are surrounding a city, and they're all giving reports, but he doesn't trust all of them, so he has to find a way to ferret out the truth, even though some of his input is lies.
And isn't that something that Bitcoin solved a long time ago, before anything else?
Well, Bitcoin solves it by basically saying, well, we're going to, at great cost, mine Bitcoin. Okay? And so in order to defeat our system, you have to spend as much on energy as the rest of us combined, and if you can do that, that's a 50% attack. And the problem is that what you gain by doing a 51% attack is control of the Bitcoin blockchain, but if people know that there's a 51% attack going on, the Bitcoin blockchain isn't worth anything.
Right.
So it's by definition a Pyrrhic victory unless you can hide it. But the solution that Stellar uses is much less energy intensive.
And is that why the fees are so much lower on Stellar?
It's one of the reasons. The other thing is a lot of the Bitcoin price and therefore the Bitcoin hype, or a lot of the Bitcoin price and therefore the Bitcoin fees, is simply because the corporate media pimps it. And the corporate media doesn't pimp other coins. They want you in the one that Visa and MasterCard control.
And Stellar is something that came out, I don't know, some number of years ago. It's been around for a while now, and they've always focused on making cryptocurrency accessible to people. And I've always liked the kind of the vision that Stellar has, even though I don't necessarily care for their. They're trying to chum up with some states here and there.
They've got hooks in their product so that you can use it if you're a regulated institution.
Yes.
But you don't have to use the hooks. So what they form is kind of a porous border between the regulated and unregulated economies, and that's kind of a cool concept.
Yeah, I don't think they would put it that way, but yeah, they do some interesting stuff over there. And so Stellar has come out with this. Has been kind of in the works for a couple of years now, or maybe like the last year, because it was about a year ago. I had to go and do a search and find out when this news came out. I was out of jail at the time. You were still in, but the news had come out in the summer of last year that Stellar was looking to buy MoneyGram.
Really?
Now, I don't think it went through because I couldn't find any further updates about that deal happening, but they were in talks. And what they ended up doing was coming to some sort of an arrangement where they are now going to team up in order to make purchasing cryptocurrency easy for people that have cash. Now, we know that there are Bitcoin vending machines, cryptocurrency vending machines in various different parts of the world. There are a few thousand of them, at least here in the United States. There's quite a few. They're becoming quite ubiquitous. But that said, a lot of times they're charging 10, 15, 20%, depending on...
Because at any moment, the people operating them can be thrown in prison.
Yes, that's true.
Well, no, I mean, I think that's... Look at the ones that are highly regulated...
Unless they're privileged like MoneyGram.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like even the regulated ones are. I think some of the highest the priced ones are actually the guys charging 20% or most of them are regulated. I have seen 8%, but that's the lowest I've ever seen. And there's only two that I've seen at 8%. One was a bank that actually was somehow involved in it, and the other was, I think, the Shire Free vending at one point.
Yeah, there's now a Bitcoin vending machine in our local Cumbies.
Really?
Yeah, Cumberland Farms has one.
Wow. So we must have like 5 in Keene now, because it seems like a bunch of places.
It's kind of funny. After the FBI raids,
there's more.
We end up with more.
Well, they have to get the non-privileged people out, so that the privileged people can come in and take advantage of you.
Yep. So I want to talk more about what's happening here with this partnership between Stellar and MoneyGram, the old money system meeting the new world of cryptocurrency. Like I said, I didn't see this coming. The old prediction was that crypto would kill MoneyGram, that crypto would kill,
that's what I would have expected.
Western Union. Instead, it looks like MoneyGram saw the light, and we'll talk about it.
Over time, it might kill cash, but
there's more coming up here.
It probably will still do that.
It's Free Talk Live.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones are open. You can join us here at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And here in the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
Nobody.
And Chris.
Don't forget, you can join us online over at freetalklive.com and enjoy the features there. Also, you can join us in real life at ForkFest, which is coming up. And coming up fast. We're about 2 weeks away from the beginning of ForkFest. It's happening June 27th through July 3rd at the beautiful Rogers Campground in the White Mountains of New Hampshire.
2 weeks away from the beginning of ForkFest?
Almost. Just a little over. 2.5.
Wow.
So Monday, not this Monday, but the following Monday will be the start of the Porcupine Freedom Festival. That's the 20th. And then ForkFest begins the next week, so the 27th. It's coming up.
Yeah, I've been crazy busy getting ready for these events, so
yep,
it's going to be a blast.
Forkfest.party. It's the 6th year of Forkfest. The Porcupine Freedom Festival, which is the granddaddy of these festivals, is completely sold out at this point. So if you want to attend the Porcupine Freedom Festival, you have to get a ticket on the secondary market. There's just no other way to do it. Forkfest doesn't have tickets. If you want to attend ForkFest, all you have to do is get your RV site, your camping site, or your motel room from Rogers Campground. from any time between June 27th and July 3rd, and there's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than being around other freedom-loving activists here in the Shire. You can go to forkfest.party and learn more about the event. And if you love cryptocurrency, there's no better place to be than the New Hampshire Freedom Festivals this summer, because whether you're at the Porcupine Freedom Festival or Forkfest or both, you'll find a wide assortment of vendors that are interested in accepting your crypto and or gold backs from you. People up here love alternatives like this.
Yeah, in fact, I think there's some are only taking gold backs in crypto.
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we had that last year, and I think we might have an increased number of vendors only taking those two options. So you might want to come prepared.
So we were talking about this new option that appears to be in the market already. It just started from the big old money company, the money transmitter, as they call it, known as MoneyGram. They have teamed up with the folks over at Stellar. And Stellar is a cryptocurrency. It's been around for a long time. It's one of the top 30, I guess you could say. And they are backed by the Stellar Development Foundation, and that's who's teamed up with MoneyGram through a partnership that launched on Friday, or is launching Friday? Yeah, so it's launching today. People can bring fiat currency into a MoneyGram location. They can convert it into cryptocurrency and go back if they want to. So if you've got crypto, you can get cash from MoneyGram locations. The service will use the USDC stablecoin, which is located on the Stellar network. So stablecoins, for listeners that don't know, are a cryptocurrency token that is backed supposedly by a US dollar. And so usually the traditional way of doing this...
Which is backed by nothing.
Sure. The traditional way of doing this is that they have dollars in a bank account. Now, there's big questions about some of these stablecoins out there. There was a huge crash recently with one of the algorithmic stablecoins that wasn't backed by dollars. It was backed by an algorithm and crypto value, and that crashed and burned hard.
I mean, yeah. Your algorithm is only as good as the assumptions you made when you wrote it.
Yeah, this is the problem. You know, people are talking about an unproven cryptocurrency or stablecoin, as opposed to something that we've had, a long time to evaluate. And there's a huge difference, and this is driving me nuts because they keep attacking, the algorithmic stablecoins, and it's like, well, hold on a second. Bitcoin, we've had a decade with Bitcoin, to understand it and to make sure, the bugs are worked out and everything. But we haven't had that with some of these algorithmic stablecoins.
Well, and the other thing is, if the guy who wrote the algorithm is any good, he can tell you what economic conditions will cause the algorithm to fail. And people forget about that, and they say, oh, the algorithm's good, so the coin will never fail. That's nonsense. It's
an irrational market is why this failed.
Of an algorithmic coin is the US dollar and fractional reserve banking. So long as you don't violate the assumptions they made when they developed the system, then everything will work. But if they guessed wrong, then banks will fail.
Well, sure.
And if they guessed catastrophically wrong, then the FDIC will fail.
Yeah, that's a great point. And a lot of that has to do with whether people believe in it and how much they believe in it.
Yeah.
Right?
And, I would say that they guessed catastrophically wrong, and eventually the FDIC will fail.
The catastrophe isn't all on us entirely yet at this point, but it is in the beginning stages.
We're only seeing the beginning of the bloodletting. Until there are people, until there is blood, physical blood running in the streets, we haven't seen the end of this thing.
This kind of reminds me of government, right? Particularly bad governments can take a really, really long time to, how do I say this? Go down.
Look at Venezuela; they're still there.
Right. Yeah. So that's the same thing. Like you can have something go a long, long time in terms
they've been destroying. They've absolutely destroyed the currency in Venezuela, and they still haven't thrown those people out of office yet.
Yeah. So it could be a
The
really
maggots
long time.
still inhabit the corpse of Venezuela.
The service initially available in the U.S., Canada, Kenya, and the Philippines, and expanding to 7 more countries this month and other countries later, is an example of the ways that...
Oh, thank God they did Kenya. That prince can finally get his money out.
It's an example of ways that new crypto markets are converging with traditional finance. It also shows how crypto needs to integrate with existing financial systems to bring in mainstream users. The partners plan to add crypto cash outs in almost all MoneyGram countries, which is over 200 countries, by the end of this month. Quote, "It's an interesting and tough problem," said Anand Iyer, the founder at venture firm Canonical Crypto, which hasn't invested in Stellar but is actively watching the infrastructure market. He says, quote, "It makes a lot of sense to have this deal because that's the only way you're going to get more crypto into the ecosystem," unquote. If Stellar and MoneyGram pull off the project and show they can attract new consumers to crypto, it could open up a much larger market for crypto and Web3 and serve as a model for other companies looking to increase access. They talk about later that MoneyGram's got 420,000 retail locations. And that is if this indeed does become what they're saying that it could become, again, they're just starting with U.S. and a few other countries. But if this does expand globally and you can go to any MoneyGram location with cash and walk out with crypto, that's a pretty big deal.
You know, the one thing that we don't have yet, and I think this is something to keep in mind, in just how much of an infancy we still really are when it comes to cryptocurrencies and adoption. We don't have the tools. Like if you say you want to be paid in crypto, for example, how does a business go about doing that? Right? Like, it's not to say
payable department isn't quite prepared for that. Right?
It's not to say that a small business might not, do that, or a big business might not do that. But it's going to be a manual process. The tools to actually, make that feasible at scale don't even exist at this point, as far as I'm aware. So we are really in the infancy of cryptocurrency.
Oh, absolutely. Still,
right?
13 years
still,
in.
and I think something to remember is this is it's not a perfect example, but it's close enough. Credit cards, and I keep bringing this up because I like to emphasize this. Credit cards,
decades.
It took 50, 60 years before it became, widespread. And I'm going to put widespread in quotes because credit cards are still not everywhere. If you go to Europe, there's still lots of places that people don't have credit cards. They don't use credit cards. And it's not to say they've never heard of a credit card.
There's some businesses here in Keene that won't take them.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who won't take them.
So if
Try
it took
paying your dog walker with a credit card.
If it's taken 50, 60 years for credit cards to become widespread, don't be surprised, that cryptocurrency isn't widespread at every merchant yet. It's going to take some time.
It is.
And it doesn't have, unlike, Google or Apple, it doesn't have the marketing or the outreach potential right up front. So it's going to take longer. But
and there's a chicken and the egg problem too. It's like, well, you need to have users in order for businesses to be interested, but you also need to have businesses who are willing to accept it in order for users to use it.
What's amazing, and I think this is the thing that keeps cryptocurrency going, is that there is a use case for it effectively.
Sure.
It's the kin of cash. And there's a lot of people who understand the value of cash over something like a credit card or a bank or a wire transfer, something of that nature. And those users are in part what makes cryptocurrency, work today.
Not just cash though, cash plus banking. Is the potential.
Well, that's the other. I think that's the other factor, right? It has value that cash doesn't have.
Imagine never paying a bank fee again.
Indeed, and that's why the banks are not so happy about crypto.
And this is why I get discounts all the time when I pay in crypto.
There's more coming up here. More about this partnership and why it's, in my opinion, this is a pretty big deal. We'll talk about it coming up.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The British government says the death sentence handed down to 2 British nationals and a Moroccan in a breakaway region of eastern Ukraine is an egregious breach of the Geneva Convention. Foreign Secretary Liz Truss made those comments after a phone call with her Ukrainian counterpart Dmytro Kuleba. The Russians are defending the death sentences delivered in the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic. From FSN's London bureau, Giles Gibson with more.
We haven't had many details yet from the Foreign Office here in London or from the Ukrainian side. We simply had a tweet from Liz Truss, the British Foreign Secretary, saying that they discussed these efforts to secure the release of those 2 British nationals who've been sentenced.
And the United Nations said today those death sentences themselves constitute a war crime. In other news, inflation in the United States has hit another 40-year high. At 8.6%, President Biden said in a statement that it's not coming down as quickly and sharply as the country needs to see. From FSN's business desk in New York, Will Denzelo with more.
May's consumer price index was worse than analysts feared. Prices for a basket of goods and services are up 8.6% compared to a year ago. That's more than the 8.3% some predicted. Energy prices are up 3.9% compared to the previous month and are now up nearly 35% versus a year ago. When accounting for inflation, real wages in the US have ticked down, sparking fresh concerns that rising prices will dampen consumer spending. May's CPI figure is slightly higher than April's number, fueling fresh speculation that the Federal Reserve will raise interest rates at a quicker clip in a bid to curb inflation. The Fed's slated to convene next week.
The US has dropped requirements for foreign visitors to have a negative COVID test before they fly into America. That move comes into force on Sunday, just as a spike in cases is being recorded at several tourist hotspots. From FSN's New York bureau, Sarah Walton with that story.
Miami-Dade County in Florida, Honolulu County in Hawaii, and the capital of Puerto Rico, San Juan, are now seeing an average of 85 new cases of COVID-19 a day each per 100,000 residents. They also have a positivity test rate of over 20%. That's much higher than the national rate of 13%, with 34 new cases recorded per day. What those 3 places have in common is that they're all major tourist destinations for sun seekers. Health experts are warning that with lots of people now opting for at-home testing, many positive results are also not being reported.
And the High Court in London has ruled that the UK government's controversial plans to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda next week, where they will await processing of their claims to live in Britain, can go ahead, although the judge left the door open for an appeal that will take place on Monday. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, and we're going to keep Ukraine in the spotlight today because we are at the end of a week that has seen Russia again intensify its bombing campaign in eastern Ukraine. And it's raised questions about whether the Donbas region can survive the war as part of Ukrainian territory. A low-level war has been raging there for years between Ukrainian forces and pro-Russian separatists, now recognized by the Kremlin as independent. But for all the heroism and bravery of Ukraine's resistance on a national scale, it now seems increasingly possible that Russia will annex the east of the country. Ed Arnold is research fellow at the Royal United Services Institute, and he's been looking at the situation on the battlefield.
At the moment, the Ukrainians, for the first time really in this war, have gone public with their casualty figures with a range of around 100 to 150 killed in action and 500 to 800 wounded in action per day. And that is really unsustainable. And while Ukraine have managed to almost double their ability to generate either professional or reserve soldiers, they're inexperienced. So at the start of this war, they put their most experienced troops on the east here, and they are in real risk of being surrounded.
Western military officials still believe the Russian army is running into broad difficulties in Ukraine, but there's no question their position in the Donbas is strengthening. The main news again, the UN says death sentences handed down to 2 British citizens and a Moroccan in eastern Ukraine are themselves a war crime. Inflation in the US hit 8.6% in May, another 40-year high. It sparked a sharp sell-off on Wall Street. And the High Court in London has ruled the UK government can go ahead next week with plans to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda, where they will await processing of their claims to enter Britain. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
Is your child defiant, independent, annoyingly inquisitive? After a long, hard day of following the rules, who wants to deal with troublesome kids? 49% of children suffer from oppositional defiant disorder, or ODD. Symptoms of ODD include independent thought, rampant creativity, and failure to submit to authority. But now there's a solution. The good people at Pilfer can help you with their time-release, once-daily capsule, Compliacin. Your child won't be able to form his own opinions, let alone express them. It maintains your child's ability to go to a state-run school and perform simple tasks around the house. You won't have to worry about parenting, and the school won't have to deal with your kid asking questions. Compliacin. You'll go from this.
Quit telling me what to do! Quit telling me what to do! Quit telling me what to do!
To this.
Good morning, Mother. I love going to school. And this week we're learning all about how the government is our federal family and they're here to help us.
Compliacin. Talk to your school psychiatrist and ask for it by name.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, kicking off the third hour here. You can join us at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you tonight, it's Ian.
Nobody.
And Chris. You can join us online over at freetalklive.com and enjoy the features we have for you there. As we continue here, we'll take your calls and thoughts about whatever's on your mind. We were just talking about some pretty interesting news in the world of cryptocurrency, and that is that the Stellar blockchain, the Stellar crypto, which is more than just a crypto. It's got this whole token system built into it.
It's an ecosystem for cryptos.
It's got basically a decentralized exchange built in at the ground floor for Stellar. So whatever tokens are on the Stellar blockchain can easily be exchanged for one another.
Yeah,
natively.
And really clever implementation of that, which is basically if you have Ether and you want Bitcoin, okay, you can basically put up a transaction or an offer where you say, I have this one thing and I want this other thing. Mm-hmm. And when somebody else is sending a transaction to somebody else, two other players, if their preferences are the opposite of yours, it will clear your transaction in the process of doing theirs. So basically, they'll send you what you want to have and the buyer wants to spend, and in exchange you will send to the seller what he wants and you don't.
Okay, I didn't know it worked that way. I thought it was just like a standard exchange where you can put market orders in and that sort of thing.
They probably have that as well, but I thought the side effect solution was really elegant.
Wow.
In that everybody in it is doing something they want to do, so theoretically they'll do it for free.
So the story here is about Stellar teaming up with MoneyGram, one of the longest-running money transmitters out there. MoneyGram, is their classic business model is you go into a location, you give them some cash, tell them who you want them to send it to, show your ID, and then the person shows their ID wherever it is they're picking it up from. And then they get cash. And, of course, MoneyGram takes a fee for that transaction. But the old prediction was that Bitcoin was going to put companies like that out of business because cryptocurrency like Bitcoin makes it easy to transfer value from one person to another without having to involve a third party.
But if you're going from Bitcoin to not Bitcoin, or from not Bitcoin to Bitcoin, you still need somebody at the border to do the exchange.
Or the on-ramp, as they're calling it in the business.
The on-ramp / off-ramp.
Right.
Because you can't get on if you can't get off, and you can't get off if you can't get on.
Pivoting is always a challenge in business,
especially for an older business.
Yeah, you would think that it would be easy, given that a lot of these mega corporations have huge amounts of profits and everything, but there's just so many examples of businesses that have gone under that couldn't do it. I mean, look at Blockbuster. I mean, they were huge and couldn't do it. Couldn't compete with Netflix, and eventually went under. And they had
decades.
And they even deployed a Netflix equivalent solution, but they were too late to the game, so they couldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, anything of size has inertia. And capital has form. It's not a bag of money that you can turn into anything. It's buildings and videotapes and cash registers.
And the old way of doing things, that's the inertia, right? Like these dinosaurs, they can't turn on a dime.
Yeah,
they don't have
you can't
the vision.
turn a cash register into a server.
Yeah, and they don't have the vision to be able to see what needs to happen early on in a lot of cases.
Yeah, it's also often a regulatory hurdle too. It's harder for established businesses that are highly regulated to transition to something that may not be regulated yet, relative to a nimble business.
In many cases, they're rightfully afraid that the regulator is going to come in and crush them. For it too.
And it's just I mean, you've gone at, when you have an established business over the years, there's certain things that end up happening, like you get sued and then you have to put in certain rules or whatever, and those rules can hamper you. Whereas another business who's just starting up doesn't have any of that legal red tape that they have to worry about. They don't, they have they might have an outside lawyer telling them what they can and cannot do, but they're not going to have that history of lawsuits or whatever else that that ties their hands in other ways. So.
And 4 out of 5 startups will fail.
Sure.
But that means 1 out of 5 will not fail.
I want to tell you a little more about this story, but first, Major Payne is on the line in Michigan. Go ahead, Major.
Hey, guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Well, you guys are talking about places that accept crypto and the difficulty of it and whatnot. It seems finding a business that takes that is like finding a gas station that has free air or maybe a kerosene pump.
No. It's way easier to find a business that takes crypto, especially if you...
Not in most places.
Especially if you include the internet, is what I was about to say.
Well, I think he's talking about physical locations, right?
Yeah.
New Hampshire, it's much easier in New Hampshire, but
even here, it's not like everywhere. I mean, Keene's the best in the state.
It's not like credit cards, but I mean, again, 60 years to
it's too new
to see widespread adoption. But there's a surprising number of businesses in Keene that still take cryptocurrency, considering the small population of crypto users.
True, but we have seen a few drop off just because businesses go out of business. Like nobody was saying,
absolutely.
There's some businesses that just aren't here anymore.
Yep.
Well, there was a buddy of mine that ran a company called Global Silver Investors. And if my mind serves me correctly, it seems to me there's 5 mints that are authorized to produce coinage and bars that are not affiliated with the government. So anyway, he got hooked up with these religious sidewinders and ended up, it ended up being a bad deal. But he had all these $1 pieces and 10-cent pieces, and he was slinging them on the internet, and he would sell them for spot plus like a buck and a half over for, the coinage and shipping and whatnot.
Yep.
But anyway, one night he's in a restaurant, and his bill was like, I don't know, $60 or something. And the spot on silver at the time, if I remember, was like $62.50.
Oh, wow.
So
that didn't last long.
Yeah.
No, he tried. Yeah. But he tried to get a server to take. He was going to give him 2 of the $1 pieces, which would have been, $65 thereabouts.
Okay.
And 2 of the 10-cent pieces, which are a tenth of that, $3.50 or whatever for his tip.
Okay, why do you call something 10 cents when its value is not 10 cents?
Well, it's the size of a dime, just to give you all proportionate.
Don't feel bad. I had the same argument with the guy who started Liberty Dollar.
I think you're talking about like maybe an ounce piece when you're saying dollar, which I agree, it's confusing.
It's worth a lot more than $1.
Yeah.
The silver dollar was a troy ounce.
Yeah, that's true. The old days they did call it $1, and we were going way back. But right now, I think it's just clearer to say it was an ounce of silver or maybe a quarter ounce or something or whatever. But anyway, go ahead. What's the point of the story?
That's why I mentioned spot. So you'd value it at $32.50 for the ounce. But anyway, so the server's scratching his head and he doesn't know what to do. So he goes and gets the manager, and this guy would not take $20 over the value of the dinner for the dinner. Yeah. He wanted dead presidents.
Sure. People don't understand the value.
Well, people don't understand the value, and they don't always have an easy and ready way to convert the value. If you have to spend an hour figuring out what you're going to do with something, that eats $20 worth of value.
So I think to back up at the defense of the business here, there is a certain amount of cost to owning and exchanging something. One thing for another thing, or being able to, if you're able to use it, if you're able to spend it, not a problem. But something like that is kind of hard to spend. So this is the whole getting it off the ground thing, and this is one of the reasons why cryptocurrencies have kind of been hard to get off the ground too, and hard to get people to accept them. But at the same time, it's way easier than silver at this point because there are places to spend it at least. Versus
But there still aren't very many off ramps, and that's what Stellar is looking to solve here with their team up with MoneyGram.
Well, this is another
silver and gold backed stables.
More on the way. It's Free Talk Live. Thanks, Major.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio with you tonight, you've got Ian.
Nobody.
And Chris.
And just having a conversation in the break there on our YouTube chat room where somebody who's listening supposedly regularly doesn't understand the difference between Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And he or she or whoever it is thinks that we are quote-unquote shills for Bitcoin.
Huh?
It's like nothing could be further from the truth. We are not shills.
For the record, I advise against long-term investment in Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin BTC is going to die.
Yeah, I want to clarify my position on this too now. I'm not advocating for investing in crypto, period. I'm not saying it's not the best investment in all of human history. I'm just saying that's not the thing that's not the reason I think people should be using cryptocurrency.
You're not in it for the money.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good point to clear that up. A lot of us got into cryptocurrency because of the vision for human freedom.
Right.
And we started with Bitcoin BTC because that's all there was in the beginning. And then there were these alternatives that came out that were competing with Bitcoin BTC. And for a long time, I didn't understand the reason why anyone cared. Because for a long time, Bitcoin was useful as currency. It did have low fees. It was useful in any part of the world, even the poorest parts of the world, because of the low fees. It was useful as electronic peer-to-peer cash. And then the people who were in charge of running or programming Bitcoin destroyed it by refusing to upgrade the code and make it so it would scale with user demand and keep the fees low. So they basically turned it from this useful thing into this savings program.
It's the best kind of way to describe it is they refused to fix the bug, right? Or they refused to fix a critical issue. Like it's like somebody giving you a car, right? Or you selling somebody a car, and then when there's a defect discovered, the manufacturer refuses to fix it, but they have a copyright on it or a patent on it or something, and only they can fix it. It's like, Well, if you can't use it anymore,
anybody can fix bugs in Bitcoin. They just
can't
call it BTC,
which is why you end up forking. And this is a good use case for forking, which is funny because we're just having a conversation about how forking is not usually the best solution. Or
I
not
think off the air, right?
Yeah, off the air. But there are certain circumstances where forking makes sense. And but what we were actually talking about off air was that, a lot of the times, especially it seems like in the crypto space, people fork stuff when it's not really necessary. Maybe initially you fork it, you create something, but you should be submitting those patches upstream if you want to see your code live on and make sure it's, viable and everything else moving forward. Because if everybody's maintaining their own code base,
of course, the problem with Bitcoin BTC is they steadfastly refuse to fix their
and that's
their
why
problems.
That's why making a copy of it and releasing their own version that they have to maintain actually made sense, because that was the only way it was going to happen.
And that's why Bitcoin Cash came out, and Dash, of course, is another great competitor. And that's always, it's like, we don't support quote unquote Bitcoin BTC in that it's not useful as for transactional purposes, but we do support the cryptos that are.
The problem that the part of the problem that's our fault, is that we frequently use the word Bitcoin the way people use the word Kleenex.
That's true.
And that's kind of unavoidable.
I try to use cryptocurrency instead of that.
In a branded
I think we're better at it than we used to be.
But we are, I think, better at it than we used to be. But I catch myself doing it all the time, saying Bitcoin when I mean crypto.
Yeah, certainly when I ask cashiers at restaurants, I'll probably use the word Bitcoin. Do you accept Bitcoin? Just because
that's
I know
because it's known.
It's known. I know that. If you say
that.
cryptocurrency,
but it's known because it's hyped, and it's hyped because it's not the best.
Yeah. Let's talk about the other one of the other options. Stellar is what we've been talking about tonight. Teaming up
stellar option
with MoneyGram now. According to the story here at Protocol.com, they say for Stellar, the deal is part of its goal of opening up access to crypto to underserved or unbanked populations. And this is what, for me, really made Stellar stand out when I first heard about it years ago, was the fact that they were interested in doing something that Bitcoin was originally supposed to do. Bitcoin was supposed to be something that somebody in the darkest depths of Africa, as long as they could get on the internet, even if they're making $1 or less a day, would still be able to afford to send Bitcoin transactions. That is impossible
because fees
now.
Should be a fraction of a penny.
Exactly. But that is impossible now on the current Bitcoin BTC network. But Stellar's always been focused on keeping fees low and keeping crypto accessible to people anywhere on the planet, especially the unbanked populations.
And the thing is, once you have a common monetary system that you can share with people in Africa, and you can do that with as little friction as possible. They're operating in the same economy that you're operating in,
right?
And the world becomes a smaller, closer place where
without banks,
without middlemen, without regulators in the way.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm always amazed. People talk about crypto as like, they're fear mongering, and all I'm thinking in the back of my head is, what other currencies, like fiat currencies, can you spend or receive and be able to spend them both locally and internationally? There's almost nothing other than cryptocurrencies, maybe
historically
US
the
dollars,
answer
but
was the dollar,
right? But this is the only.
That's what they mean when they say reserve currency of the world.
This is the only cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin probably, and maybe Bitcoin Cash, are probably the only two real examples, and maybe a few of those others. But the point is, basically, cryptocurrencies are the only real example of a competitor to the US dollar, internationally.
Sure.
But the most important thing is, once you're in crypto, there are at least potential technological solutions that make it so it doesn't matter if you prefer Bitcoin and the other guy prefers Bitcoin Cash. And that's why I thought the exchange algorithm that I described was so important, because it makes competing currencies irrelevant and gets the idea of currency closer to being what it represents, and what it represents is value in a pure form.
Danelle Dixon's the CEO of the Stellar Development Foundation. She said about this deal, quote, "From that standpoint, this really changes potentially a huge amount and really brings the cash-based world into the digital economy. We're actually really trying to target those users that have cash and really grow their opportunity," unquote. Because up until now, if you don't have a bank account, you are mostly shut out from the world of cryptocurrency.
Oh, yeah.
With the exception,
and if somebody tries to let you in, they may go to prison for it.
Yeah. With the exception, because that's why they're coming after the Crypto 6, which you can learn about at thecrypto6.com. With the exception of Bitcoin vending machines where you can use cash, it's just they may not always be accessible. They may not have, in some cases, fees lower than 20%. So if you want to get an actual decent deal on the purchase, you're basically out of options unless you can find somebody in real life who's desperate and willing to sell it like a market price, which is very, very hard to do in most places. So this potential deal, this deal on the table with Stellar, could change all that.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The British government says the death sentence handed down to 2 British nationals and a Moroccan in a breakaway region of eastern Ukraine is an egregious breach of the Geneva Convention. Foreign Secretary Liz Truss made those comments after a phone call with her Ukrainian counterpart Dmytro Kuleba. The Russians are defending the death sentences delivered in the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic. From FSN's London bureau, Giles Gibson with more.
We haven't had many details yet from the Foreign Office here in London or from the Ukrainian side. We simply had a tweet from Liz Truss, the British Foreign Secretary, saying that they discussed these efforts to secure the release of those 2 British nationals who've been sentenced.
And the United Nations said today those death sentences themselves constitute a war crime. In other news, inflation in the United States has hit another 40-year high. At 8.6%, President Biden said in a statement that it's not coming down as quickly and sharply as the country needs to see. From FSN's business desk in New York, Will Denzelo with more.
May's consumer price index was worse than analysts feared. Prices for a basket of goods and services are up 8.6% compared to a year ago. That's more than the 8.3% some predicted. Energy prices are up 3.9% compared to the previous month and are now up nearly 35% versus a year ago. When accounting for inflation, real wages in the US have ticked down, sparking fresh concerns that rising prices will dampen consumer spending. May's CPI figure is slightly higher than April's number, fueling fresh speculation that the Federal Reserve will raise interest rates at a quicker clip in a bid to curb inflation. The Fed slated to convene next week.
The US has dropped requirements for foreign visitors to have a negative COVID test before they fly into America. That move comes into force on Sunday, just as a spike in cases is being recorded at several tourist hotspots. From FSN's New York bureau, Sarah Walton with that story.
Miami-Dade County in Florida, Honolulu County in Hawaii, and the capital of Puerto Rico, San Juan, are now seeing an average of 85 new cases of COVID-19 a day each per 100,000 residents. They also have a positivity test rate of over 20%. That's much higher than the national rate of 13%, with 34 new cases recorded per day. What those 3 places have in common is that they're all major tourist destinations for sun seekers. Health experts are warning that with lots of people now opting for at-home testing, many positive results are also not being reported.
And the High Court in London has ruled that the UK government's controversial plans to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda next week, where they will await processing of their claims to live in Britain, can go ahead, although the judge left the door open for an appeal that will take place on Monday. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSA.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number 603-283-6160. We're talking about a pretty big deal that apparently just started today with the Stellar Development Foundation. They're the group that works on the Stellar blockchain, making it better, improving it, etc. And they've come up with an interesting deal with MoneyGram, which has hundreds of thousands, over 420,000 retail locations all around the planet. Now, not all of them are on board with this yet, but locations in the U.S., Canada, Kenya, and the Philippines are on board, and 7 more countries will be coming on this month. They're expecting up to 200 countries by the end of this month, perhaps, on this deal that will allow users to go physically into a MoneyGram location, put cash down on, give that to the vendor or whatever, and then receive crypto, specifically the USDC. That's the US dollar stable coin that's issued by Circle and Coinbase. I think that's who's behind USDC. That will come into your Stellar wallet. And then you can do whatever you want with that. You can then buy Bitcoin with it. You could buy Ethereum with it. You could buy the Nigerian Naira with it. You can. But there's so many different things that are on the Stellar blockchain. I don't even know, probably 1% of what is on there. And of course, you can always take you can buy Stellar itself, and then you could take those to other exchanges and exchange them for anything you want. So this is an interesting way to get people who have cash into the world of cryptocurrency without having to use the banks. Now, of course, you are still dealing with a regulated financial institution known as MoneyGram, and so therefore, know your customer rules are going to apply. You are going to have to show ID in order to do this, but that's just the way it is, unfortunately, with these on-ramps, as they call them. So,
yeah, the best way to get crypto is to receive it, to accept it.
For services or whatever?
Yeah, because if you're accepting it, then you don't have to worry about the KYC stuff.
Sure, if somebody's going to pay you.
Right, so if you've got a business or a service or something that you do, just let people know. All you got to do is advertise the fact that you take it.
But for somebody that doesn't have that option, which is probably most people, if they, you're getting your paycheck.
If you work for a large corporation, they're not going to revamp their accounting system for you.
Sure, I agree with you guys on that. But the thing is, I think you underestimate the number of small businesses in America. It's
not all small businesses will do it either. A tiny fraction of small businesses will do it.
No, but what I'm trying to say is that most individuals, or I should say a surprising percentage of the population does have the ability to start accepting cryptocurrency themselves directly for some sort of work that they perform. There are more small businesses than large businesses in the United States, like, for example. So that's just what I'm trying to get at.
You can try. It never hurts to ask.
Yep.
But for the rest of us, that rest of people can't do that, then they might just want to take an extra $20 and buy some crypto. And this is probably going to be the easiest way to do it.
Onboarding, for those who can't. I 100% agree with you on that.
Since Stellar launched in 2014, this story from Protocol.com, its focus has been on payments. Last year, the company added USDC to its network, enabling people to pay much less than on other systems like Ethereum due to Stellar's low fees, which are typically a small fraction of a penny. Especially in today's bear market, boosting accessibility is a way to address the misconception that crypto is just for trading, since this improves other uses such as payments, said Dixon. For Stellar,
isn't a payment trading?
I guess you could look at it that way.
I think when they say trading, they must mean investment.
I think they mean swapping one currency for another.
Every time you buy or sell, it's a trade.
I think they're talking about swapping one crypto for another crypto in the hopes of making a profit.
Yeah, that's just investment.
For Stellar, the new product uses USDC instead of its native token, the XLM, highlights the organization's recent focus on stablecoins. Dixon sees the future of crypto payments in stablecoins. She says, "We don't prefer XLM over anything else. In fact, we prefer stablecoins. They're a really nice way for payments to be leveraged," she says.
And that really makes sense. It frees you from the market risk of holding the XLM token because you're only in it for a moment while the transaction's going on. I really think that the future is going to be commodity-based stable coins.
Like an ounce of gold backing
an
crypto?
Ounce of gold, even an ounce of pork bellies.
Okay.
Or a pound of pork bellies or whatever they denominate pork bellies in, because, you know, once you get to the point where you and your counterparty don't have to be in the same commodity, okay, then the commodities market moves into this mass of things that's been subsumed by crypto. We've already mentioned crypto can replace money and crypto can replace banking. Crypto can also replace MoneyGram, although MoneyGram can make money off it while that's in the process of happening. But crypto can also replace the commodities market. And the commodities market in Chicago is horribly rigged. You can't get, for example, physical delivery of gold and silver.
You're buying it on paper
without doing privileged magic. I was trying, when I worked for Citibank, to buy 1,000 ounces of silver on the commodities exchange and actually get it delivered to me.
They don't have it.
Every commodities broker I talked to just told me I was crazy.
Yeah, they don't have it. Bringing together a traditional financial company with a newfangled blockchain group wasn't simple. MoneyGram and Stellar began talking in 2019, and the companies then built an adapter that showed it was possible for Stellar and MoneyGram systems to connect. The companies started talking about this current product in March of last year. In one key meeting last summer, the Dixon with Stellar told the MoneyGram CEO Alex Holmes that, quote, "The thing that had been missed in a lot of different spaces is how much blockchain and crypto needs MoneyGram," unquote. The product was built over the next several months, and a pilot began in November. MoneyGram has licenses and operations in 200 countries and territories with more than 420,000 agent locations, which allowed for a relatively quick build. Their vice president of business development at Stellar praised MoneyGram's ability to abstract out all the complexity. Stellar's seen payments grow more than 500% on its network in the last year, but it needs to increase access for retail users.
I wonder if that adapter is open source, because
Good question.
That is something that could be really valuable for other companies that want to gateway their dollar accounting system to other currencies.
In 2016, they launched their first Anchors, a network of regulated financial institutions, money services businesses, stablecoin issuers, and other providers of on-ramps and off-ramps, and now have about 50 of those companies in places like Brazil, Nigeria, the Philippines, and the U.S. But most of the Anchors on Stellar are regional, and not all have physical cash in or out locations, so MoneyGram will be sort of a super anchor for Stellar. So here's how it's going to work. And again, this is supposedly started today in the United States, the Philippines, Kenya, and Canada. A customer initiates a transaction on a compatible wallet, which they use two different wallets so far. There may be more in the future, but they're called Lobster, Lobstr, and Vibrant. They initiate the transaction, then they bring dollars or other fiat money into a MoneyGram location. The agent verifies the identity of the user and loads the funds into the customer's digital wallet as a MoneyGram transaction using the Stellar blockchain network. And of course, you can do it in the reverse way as well. You can cash out from your Stellar wallet and pick up the cash at a MoneyGram location. So they're saying that already those two wallets, Lobster and Vibrant, are already live at launch, and the companies are working on supporting both custodial and non-custodial wallets. MoneyGram said the service will be offered, this is the most important thing here, no fees for the first 12 months in order to boost adoption.
That could cause an explosion in crypto adoption. That really could, because A big stop to crypto adoption has been the high fees for
Do you want to pay 15%?
Yeah.
15 to 20% at the local Bitcoin vending machine, or 0% right now? And again, the question is, what is it going to be after 12 months?
I mean, to some degree, we have had low fees though through exchanges. So,
but that's not who they're
Most
competing
people
with.
can't get exchange accounts.
Yeah, you have to have a bank in order to have an exchange account.
And a bank that won't close your account.
Yeah, good luck with that. The number is 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and the phones are open if you want to join us. The number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Ian, Nobody, and Chris here in the studio. We're talking about a pretty big development from Stellar, which is one of the top 30, I would say, cryptocurrencies out there. It's been as high as the top 10. It's not there at the moment, but it is still a relevant crypto. They come up with an interesting deal with MoneyGram in the United States and Canada, Philippines, and Kenya to start, but they're expecting to expand this globally to all 420,000 MoneyGram locations if this goes well. And that is to allow people to bring cash into MoneyGram locations and convert that cash into cryptocurrency. Specifically the USDC stablecoin, which you could then use to exchange for whatever other crypto that you want to exchange it to. And they're starting this up today. This is apparently day number 1 of this particular product, the service being available again in the U.S. They say that they're going to be offering the service for no fees in the first 12 months to boost adoption, and that's an incredible promotion. And we're by the way, just to clarify, this isn't, we're not sponsored by Stellar. We're not sponsored by MoneyGram. This isn't some sort of an advertisement. I'm open to hear criticisms on this. I think this is a great idea. What
I think is interesting about this is how this will impact the competition and reduce the fees potentially of all the competitors.
You mean from like a Bitcoin vending machine or something?
Yeah, Bitcoin vending machine. Everybody.
Because that's basically the competitor here. I mean, they're not competing with the exchanges. They're competing to get the people who don't have exchange access into the world of cryptocurrency.
But they're also competing with exchanges because,
to some extent,
if you have a choice between sending a wire transfer to Bittrex and walking into your local Walmart, walking into your Walmart is quicker, easier, and if there's no fee, it's even cheaper.
That's a good question. I'm not sure about that, but I guess it depends.
If there's no fee, he's absolutely right. They are definitely then competing with exchanges because exchanges are going to charge you maybe 0.5% or something like that.
Well, but it's not just that; it's getting an account with an exchange,
which is a huge hassle.
You have to dance for them.
But
you
here's
have
the question:
to send them your ID and your stupid pictures.
Well, you're going to have to ID in this case.
Once you've done that, though, it's probably easier to do it through an exchange, I would think, than it is to go into a Walmart.
Jump the hoops.
But you're right. I wonder, and this is the thing, I think it depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about somebody who's just getting into crypto, it's not going to be as easy to set up an exchange as it is to be walk into a Walmart and show an ID.
Or if you have some experience, every exchange that I've applied to save one has turned me down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to get into.
It's hard to use you guys as an example.
That was before I was arrested. I haven't been applying to exchanges since my arrest.
Sure, I understand that. But I mean, just because you're how do I say this? You hadn't yet been arrested doesn't necessarily mean that there was not some messaging going around by government agents, at threatening banks or
even
something along those lines.
Before the day I started.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It is not easy to get into these exchanges, and it's gotten harder over time, not easier to get into.
Oh, for sure.
So really the big question is what happens after the 12 months? So 12 months, no fees. I mean, it's a no-brainer at that point. I mean, there's no reason not to try this service out. If I weren't on insane bail conditions prohibiting me from using crypto, I'd be there tonight or tomorrow to try this service because it sounds pretty amazing. But according to the MoneyGram CEO, Holmes, he says the price of transactions will eventually be priced competitive with buying and selling crypto or with sending remittances. The World Bank reports the average remittance fees paid on conventional money transfers in 2021 were a little more than 6%. So if they're going to charge 6%... on future transactions, that still beats every Bitcoin vending machine out there.
That's a good
that I've ever seen.
I mean, that's at least somewhere between 2 and 14% lower, basically, than a vending machine.
MoneyGram sees this.
I mean, you could literally operate a vending machine while buying and selling from them.
Yeah.
MoneyGram
those
sees
prices.
the stellar deal bringing in new customers who want to get into or are already into crypto, as well as providing a new product for existing customers. Holmes notes overlap between immigrants who use MoneyGram to send money overseas and populations in Latin America that show strong crypto interest. In addition, by integrating with Stellar, it enables any other wallet on that network to plug into MoneyGram, adding more potential customers. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out over time. And, kudos to MoneyGram for being willing to try something new here.
Yeah, honestly, this just made them not irrelevant.
Right. They may stay around a little while longer.
It's their competitors that I would be, which actually begs the question.
Western Union will be doing the same thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm just about to say.
Sometime soon.
This seems like it may be the start of a trend in terms of these regulated entities jumping into the crypto space.
And when that happens, potentially it will set off the firestorm of adoption that's going to cause the values to explode.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been talking to people about how crypto tends to historically it's gone down and it's dropped. But usually it's not dropped by more than half of what it was at its height. And so right now I would say, I could be wrong here. It could go down, but I got a feeling we're probably at the lows. This would probably be a great time to get in. Not that I'm advocating anybody go out and buy it, but if I were, this probably is a good time to go, especially if that does happen.
Don't go out and buy it until the day after my bail conditions end.
We got more.
Well, anyway, I said, I'm not going out and buying anything. I'm just saying, I want to
get these calls on the line here. We got somebody calling in from the 918 area code. You're on Free Talk Live. On-screen call. Go ahead. Sounds like a screeching. I don't know if they're kissing us or if that's like a screeching animal. Or
Sounds
something.
like a pig.
Thanks for the call, I think.
Baby
Let's go to
pig.
We made him squeal like a pig.
Jack in Washington. Jack, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm in the federal government's occupied territory of Washington State.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and they allowed me to smoke weed here. So thank you, my government. So thank you. Is that how?
In a cage, you're allowed to smoke weed?
No, he's in Washington State.
Washington, I'm allowed to. The government allows me
okay.
to. They're so kind.
Was that why you were calling tonight?
No, I was I want to bring up inflation. Earlier, it really depressed me. You talked about Venezuela. Their currency had lost all their money, and it was fire tender, and how their governments don't control. But if you look at history, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. So Rome, East Germany.
Rome wasn't sacked in a day.
Isn't there a saying like that? Yeah, it wasn't, though. Yeah, you're right. But it just happened all at once still, when it did happen. It's hard to decipher between the two.
Well, yeah, a lot of times these big historic changes in governments do happen very quickly, and unexpectedly so.
Yeah, they frequently divide, too. So you might end up with
like
a
the
country.
USSR.
Yeah, the USSR or the Roman Empire on numerous occasions, it just kind of divided. It got cut in half because of, I don't know if you call them warlords, but something equivalent to warlords, divvying up the Roman Empire. And then it kind of what was the Roman Empire after they expanded was no longer the Roman Empire, but the Roman Empire still existed because it was in a totally different area.
Yeah, so it still exists. Now they call it the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Or it could be succession. Everyone breaks off into their own move with your feet, vote with your feet thing. Which
secession.
Yeah, secession. I apologize. It's a new word to me. Most people never heard it, so I guess I'm in the plus side of that. So,
well, they're going to be hearing a lot more about it, I think, as conditions continue to worsen here in the United States. People need to talk more. The words national divorce are being used more commonly these days, and whatever it takes to get the conversation started.
Yeah, national divorce is good.
We could be seeing the beginning of the end of the American empire. May it rot in hell.
I hope it's going to end sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
because they stretched it out a lot in Venezuela.
Yeah, I like to choice words independence. And it's actually speaking of independence, we actually just got in shirts today.
You did, yeah.
that basically say it's not me, it's you, and then it has United States with New Hampshire because for the New Hampshire independence.
It's not you,
movement.
it's me is actually what it says. But
sorry, my bad.
Not much of a difference.
Yeah.
And then it's got the image of the U.S. and New Hampshire, and on the backside nhexit.us, right?
Yep.
Now those shirts are not available online though.
No, they're exclusively available at the Porcupine Freedom Festival and PorcFest coming up.
So you got to be there to get one of these things. You only have 100 of them.
That's right, 101.
And then they're gone.
Yep, then they're gone.
Jack, thanks for the call tonight. Appreciate hearing from you. Check out forkfest.party to learn more about that. And you can join us online between now and tomorrow night over at freetalklive.com, where, by the way, tomorrow we are expecting the return of Mark Edge. He should be joining us again for the next few weeks of broadcast.
Just to be edgy.
Free Talk Live.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again.